On the one-year anniversary of the Orlando terror attack, how is it being remembered? The Washington Post left out the massacre's cause. The only reference to Islamic State is actually in a caption. Yet it had no problem calling the attack another example of gun violence, which I guess makes Hurricane Katrina water violence. A better way to honor victims is to remind us why they were killed, not how they were killed. After 9/11, you don't honor the dead by saying they were murdered by a plane and a box cutter. They were killed because of radical Islam. And the gays and lesbians murdered at the Pulse, same thing. So a year later, the press obscures facts in the name of political correctness. So a terrorist can gun down gays, but hey, let's target the outrage that follows instead. A piece in the New York Times, it was called A Night of Terror, A Year of Racism, focused on critics of radical Islam. Not racist if it's a set of ideas. Just remember that. And he said the response to the attack was a missed opportunity for gun reform. Once again, terrorism always exposes enablers in their flaccid response to evil. This weekend, there were protests against Sharia law, mocked by the media who smeared them at times as far right. How crazy is it that if you come out against intolerant, sexist, homophobic, deadly tyranny, it's you who is the problem? By the way, yesterday was another anniversary. The first hanging of a witch took place in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. If our modern media were around then, they would side with the hangmen. So, KG...
I have a solution.
Yes, tell me.
Thank you so much for calling on me.
Yes.
I know I inserted myself into the discussion rather forcefully.
Yes.
Fine. Call it a travel ban on countries that murder gays and lesbians. How about that?
Yeah.
How about people that practice Sharia law?
Sail right through.
Sail right through. Ninth Circuit, I call you out. Try and do that. Countries that don't honor, marriage equality, that murder gays and lesbians, that believe women don't have any rights, that stone women to death, that if a family member rapes them and they're 13 years old, they get killed, that believe in genital mutilation. How about that? Would that be okay?
You know what, though? I don't think it would be. I think they would still defend it. There are people that came out against the anti-Sharia marches, and they consider themselves feminists, defending something that would kill them.
Yeah, when they have the climate rallies, they don't call those far left. Those are mainstream, and it's a bunch of moms with their kids. There's a lot of things you want to remember about what happened in Orlando. One, this guy was fired from his job for saying horrible things about Jews and Fort Hood and women. And the FBI interviewed this guy 3 times, and they still didn't get it right. The guy targeted a gay club partially because it was gay. And after the attack, it was ISIS-inspired. The president tried to spin it as something about gun violence, but it was not. It was a 9mm pistol and a sport rifle. So when the Washington Post comes out here and whitewashes it, that just makes this war on terror more dangerous because it hides the truth. And no one that reads the Washington Post buys into this. When they play word games, we see through it. We're not that stupid. We're not duped by these games you're playing. So I think the Washington Post thinks they're smarter than their readers, and they actually aren't. We know how dangerous it is.
You know, Dana, they focus on tools, but we know it's been cars, trucks, bombs, knives, planes, and vans.
Right. Well, and they didn't talk about the ideology at all.
No.
Which is basically, remember, he calls the 911 call, reveals that he calls and he says, I'm doing this on behalf of Allah. Yeah. Also, the articles did not mention the wife's involvement. And how they had to track her down, remember? And they said, oh, she said, I had nothing to do with it. And then, oh, wait, maybe she did. And then there was a lot more to this than gun violence. Gun violence is terrible, too. But hiding this was a surprise to me. I actually read the article twice before I responded because I thought surely I must have missed something. Right. And I was really surprised I didn't.
You know, Juan, if we can't kill these ghouls, if we keep blaming their acts on other things, it will weaken our resolve. You can't, it just keeps you from, and maybe that's why when we're fighting ISIS, we're not fighting it to our fullest capability because we keep thinking, oh, maybe they have a point.
I think we are fighting ISIS to our fullest capability, especially I would think that people who are Trump supporters would say we're fighting them more aggressively than ever.
Now we are.
Okay. Oh, that's what I just said. Okay. So I don't know where that comes from. But to my mind, I think the Washington Post was focused on the sadness, the loss of life for those families and the people who were killed. It was not about that. Now, I think they were wrong not to mention it for sure. I don't see how you can do that because, as Dana just said, it's mentioned in the phone call when he claims, I'm doing this. Now, he was never connected to any larger network or anything like that, but mention would have been, I think, sufficient. The question is, just as in the protest about Sharia law, what is going on the right, where the right thinks, oh, gee, we're going to buy into this because we want some grievance. We see that everybody's walking all over us. We think something's wrong. I don't understand why the right feels this way.
Can I help you understand?
Yeah, help me.
Yeah, I looked at the protests in England, and they weren't the right. There were Sikhs, there were gays, there were minorities that were there, and the media, BBC, I think it was BBC, I can't remember, BBC 3, I'm not sure, called them far right. They weren't. They were just people that were finally tired of it. They were pissed off. They were like, people in Manchester are dying. People in London Bridge are dying. We don't want to die. I think they're part of the we don't want to die party.
No, I think when you get someone like President Trump, who in the aftermath of what took place there, immediately said, I was right. You think, what is going on? You were right about Islamic terror. What are you right about? And then this morning, when he comes back at it again, you understand, this is being politicized, and the right somehow delights in it.
You know what the thing is?
That is
no one delights
very
in it.
inappropriate.
The politicization of a terror attack
They delight in the loss of life?
They called Benghazi about a video. They called Fort Hood workplace violence. There's always a spin when there's the president who's a Democrat in charge, and it happens on his watch.
You guys are so insecure that you're always on your back heels reacting to someone else. Just react to the facts.
You're
Just
the one
stick
that's
with the
saying that
facts.
the right delights in the loss of life.
Islam that perpetrated the attack.
I think the fact. Listen, the fact is, this guy was a nutcase. This guy was a deeply disturbed, troubled person, and then he takes the moment and attributes it to radical Islam.
ISIS
This is a perfect example.
Yeah.
You have absolutely no solutions, Juan.
No, he
when
doesn't.
anybody says, hey, this is a product of a new kind of strategy by ISIS to incite people to do this. You go, oh, he's nothing, no worries, and you're politicizing it.
Lone wolf.
No. I think President Trump specifically politicized it when he wrote, appreciates the congrats for being right on radical terrorism.
You want to turn instead
what
of talking
is going
about
on?
Are you more upset about Trump?
Well, that's a
What I'm
problem.
just telling
radical Islam.
I'm not upset about anybody who intentionally politicizes a tragedy.
Here's the problem. Juan wants to focus and somehow try to find an opportunity out of weakness to try to blame a president who's frustrated by the loss of life. He hasn't done anything wrong here. The problem is the Washington Post,
is wrong,
the Washington Post
being a coward
glossed over this. They didn't mention the word terrorism, terror, ISIS, Islam, Muslim, al-Baghdadi.
I don't think anybody is being cowardly.
If you don't want to talk about radical Islam, you're a coward. If you want to blame Trump for it because of his tweets, you're a coward.
No, I'm telling you that what's going on here is that people politicize this and try to make it a political issue when what we all should be doing.
But that's what you're doing.
So people who lost loved ones in 9/11, their outrage is, of course, political.
No, that's not comparable.
You're saying anybody who was outraged and says something about it is political.
Greg. Okay, Greg, you should think about what I'm saying.
I am. That's why I'm about to throw up.
President Obama blamed Benghazi on a video.
Because that is just wrong, Greg.
What? President Obama blamed Benghazi on a video
to
save his general election. If that's not politicizing tragedy,
are you back in the weeds somewhere?
I don't know what is.
You are way back. Why don't you come to the table? Let's discuss this.
All right, we got to go.